draft night, the opening night of the 2021 NFL Draft is done and over with. We had some surprises. We had some picks that we thought were going to happen. Now let's take the time to go back and look at the major points that kind of happened here tonight, Thursday night of the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, things started off kind of normal, and I'm not going to go and I'm not going to go through pick by pick and spend, hours talking about each one of these picks, but I'm going to go through and kind of highlight them. And picks 1 and 2 were what we thought they were going to be. We knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be that number 1 overall pick. We knew that Zach Wilson was going to be the number 2 overall pick. Those did not surprise. We've been talking about them for months, so there's not really much to talk about except for it's going to be exciting to see them on those teams now. But pick 3 is where it all started kicking off. And for the longest time, it looked like it was going to be Mac Jones. Even today, I thought it was going to be Mac Jones. And the 49ers surprised a lot of people, didn't surprise some, but they ended up taking Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Now, although I mocked them in my final mock draft, I gave them Mac Jones, I loved the fact that they took Trey Lance here. If you were going to move up from 12 to 3, give up 3 first-round picks, you go and you get somebody with that potential. And it was nothing against Mac Jones. It was nothing against his talent. I thought he would have been tremendous in San Francisco's offense. But you go up and you get that guy. And I think Trey Lance is that guy. He fits well within the Shanahan scheme. He's got that athleticism that you want and you need in the NFL these days. And I was so excited. I was so happy for the 49ers. If you're a 49ers fan, you probably went in today like, oh, I guess we're getting Mac Jones. And you're trying to justify and you're maybe talking yourself into it. Maybe you've accepted it and you're like, he's going to be good. It's okay. Who cares if we gave up those picks? But you got to be ecstatic. And as a fan of football, I like Kyle Shanahan. I like the 49ers. They're fun to watch. And they're going to get even more fun with Trey Lance whenever he takes over. It may not be 2021. I could see him sitting a whole year with, unless Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt again. But it'll be anxious to see how he does in that offense. Pick 4, Kyle Pitts. Another pick that I was a little leery on. I thought they could have gone quarterback. I was, Justin Fields was sitting there. I'm thinking, okay, potentially, maybe they take a quarterback. But it made too much sense to take Kyle Pitts, especially if the rumors are true about Julio Jones being traded. They need a new number 1. And I don't care that he's a tight end. He's going to be their number 1 receiver if Julio gets traded. Even if Julio doesn't get traded, they're building this offense to be unstoppable. And I got to love that pick. All right, picks 5 and 6 was where we saw the little mini wide receiver run. Jamar Chase, the talk was, do they take Sewell or do they take Chase? The thing about the Bengals and not taking Sewell, I mean, I would have totally understand it. I would have 100% been on board with them taking Penei Sewell. But their tackle situation is not bad. You got Jonah Williams. You got Riley Reif. The depth of the tackle class is on day 2. So if they weren't totally in love with Penei Sewell, then I totally get this. Jamar Chase, a lot of, we keep hearing scouts and executives talk about how Jamar Chase has been the best receiver that come back out in years. And if he ends up proving that, you get a true number 1 receiver. You got T. Higgins, who played well last year as a rookie. Now he's your number 2. And you got Tyler Boyd in the slot. And Joe Burrow coming back from his knee injury. They're going to get, that's another thing. Oh, they should have took a lineman. Well, we still have 6 more rounds of the NFL draft to go. And they could get good guards on day 2. They can get another right tackle on day 2. They don't have to take one at 5 and then be done. They can get good quality players later in the draft. So I totally understand what they're doing. They got to hope Chase pans out like the projections are, but I think he'll do well. Now, I was a bit surprised with the Dolphins at 6. I thought that they were going to trade back. I thought a team And we'll get into Justin Fields and Mac Jones in a little bit, but I was a little surprised that we didn't have 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. I thought, or in the top 10, I thought the Panthers at 8, the Dolphins at 6. I would have thought that was a prime spot for teams to trade up and get their quarterbacks. And so I thought that the Dolphins were going to take Jalen Waddle. That's who I mocked them. That's what I've been reading and hearing. But I thought it was going to be later on. And so when they took him, I was ecstatic. I love that move. Just look at the speed and the explosiveness that the Dolphins are getting. You're getting Will Fuller on one side, Jalen Waddle on the other. You got Devontae Parker. You got Preston Williams. That receiving core is so much better today than it was last year. And so I definitely love that pick. Lions at 7. Penei Sewell. That was one of those. As soon as the Dolphins pick was on, the TV said, "Whoop, Lions pick is in." And I joked the other night on the Titan Upload show here on also on YouTube that if Penei Sewell's available there, the Lions are running to the podium, and they practically did that with Penei Sewell. He's such a perfect fit for what Dan Campbell wants to do. They have to be ecstatic. If you're a Lions fan, you got to be ecstatic because you got a guy that's, some are calling a generational tackle. I kind of backed off that a little bit, but I think he's a tremendous player. He's a top 3 player, top 4 player for me. So to get him at 7, that's definitely got to be happy for them. Now pick 8 and 9, the Panthers and the Broncos went a little bit they went the little cornerback run, and J.C. Horn does not surprise me that he was the first cornerback taken in this class. In preparing for the draft, and reading the rumors and all of that information, J.C. Horn's name kept coming up. Teams liking him. And I like J.C. Horn too. I like Greg Newsome better, but all of those rumors and all of that talk just tells me that the NFL liked J.C. Horn a lot. So I thought that maybe the Eagles would trade up to get him, but he ends up going to Carolina, and that's a team that I thought I ended up mocking Trey Lance, but I think if I long had them taking Surtain, and so it doesn't surprise me they took a corner. I know it's not like sexy as taking a quarterback or that, but he's a guy with a lot of potential, so not a surprise that they took him there at 8. Now, I was a little surprised. I had still thought that, with the Broncos, I know there's lots of rumors about Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And, yes, they traded for Teddy Bridgewater, and they wanted to get competition for Drew Lock. I still thought they were going to take a quarterback, and I thought this was going to be Justin Fields. Heck, you'd even heard him talk about they like Mac Jones, and so I was going in thinking they're going to take a quarterback here. And they did it, and that's fine. They took a corner. They got Kyle Fuller in free agency after the Bears had to cut him, and now they get another corner. And I think he's perfect for Vic Fangio's defense and Patrick Surtain. You got him on one side, Fuller on the other. The Broncos cornerbacks are set, and they're good. Kyle Fuller, he didn't last very long in free agency. Okay. Now you got Surtain, who a lot of people, including myself, thought was the best cornerback in this class, and they're rocking and rolling there. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I was a little surprised, not shocked, maybe a little bit, but we had a trade within a division. How often do you see 2 teams within a division trade? Usually you're like, oh, they're not going to trade with that team because they're in their division. Why do they want to let them get their player? But we saw that here with the Eagles and the Cowboys. The Eagles wanted to move up. We had heard that they wanted to move up into the top 10. We thought, maybe it was going to be a cornerback, and maybe they did. Maybe they really wanted J.C. Horn. Maybe they really wanted Patrick Surtain, but they went off the board already. So they took a receiver, and they took the second receiver in a row. The last year they took Jalen Reagor, who didn't, was slow, didn't have the best rookie season, and now they go out and get Devontae Smith. the fact that they're going with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, they need to give him weapons. And you can't count on Alshon Jeffrey anymore. You got Greg Ward, who's a solid role player. You got Travis Fulgham. You got Jalen Reagor, who you hope starts to pan out. But you needed somebody else. And Devontae Smith was, former Heisman Trophy winner, a talented receiver. There's questions about his weight and all that. How is he going to hold up? It didn't matter. And the other day I went on and I was talking about how I could see receivers falling because we've kind of seen that last few years. And boy, was I wrong, because we had receivers go 5, 6, and 10. So that notion that teams were going to pass on receivers because of the depth of the group didn't happen this year. All right, pick 11. This was originally the Giants, and for the longest time, it's like Giants aren't going to trade back. Yeah, there's rumors. Everyone laughed at the rumors that the Giants were going to trade back. They never trade back. David Gettleman has never traded back until this year. And the Giants moved back with the Bears. And the Bears were the team that I, for the longest time, thought they're going to trade up to get a quarterback. They're desperate. Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, their jobs are depending on getting this quarterback situation right. I mean, they went 8-8 the past 2 years, made the playoffs this year, and they're on the hot seat. And I thought they were going to trade up. But then as the draft came closer and closer, you weren't hearing very many rumors of them moving up. You didn't hear them talking about it. And so you thought, oh, okay, maybe ownership won't let them. Maybe they feel confident in Andy Dalton. They just need to get players to make it to the playoffs again to keep their job one more year, and they're worried about getting a young quarterback later. Regardless, when they moved up to pick 11, I was ecstatic. And I'm thinking, please take Justin Fields. Because the total Bears thing to do in this situation, the biggest Bears move in this situation would have been to take Mac Jones. And I know Mel Kiper and I know Booger McFarland were saying, oh, it's got to be Mac Jones. You got to take Mac Jones. Why is there such Justin Fields slander this year? I don't get it. Justin Fields was my second-rated quarterback. I thought he could be a number 1 overall pick in most classes. And he was just getting drugged through the mud this whole draft, and I was hoping, and I was, thinking, please let it be somebody is leaking that stuff because they want him to fall. Because everything that you see out of him, from him on the QB1 show on Netflix, from his time at Ohio State, him pushing to play this year, everything added up. His play on the field, it wasn't the most consistent. He's not Andrew Luck out there, but to me, he was Justin Herbert. And so when the Bears made the move to get Justin Fields, everyone was like, I'm so happy for Bears fans because they finally were hoping they finally got their quarterback, a team that's been quarterback starved for years. Bears fans have to be just ecstatic and excited that they got their guy. And you've got weapons on offense. You got Darnell Mooney. You've got Allen Robinson for, at least a year. You've got Tariq Cohen's coming back. You've got David Montgomery. They've got talent. So Justin Fields, I've compared him often to Justin Herbert. And if he can come in and play even kind of like Herbert last year, Bears fans have got to be excited, especially with Aaron Rodgers potentially getting traded. I don't think it's going to happen, but his time in Green Bay is coming up. And now if you look at the NFC North, Justin Fields, the Bears might have the best quarterback situation moving forward because Jordan Love, who knows what he's going to be with the Packers? How long is Aaron Rodgers going to be around? Jared Goff with the Lions. Kirk Cousins is solid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking Kirk Cousins, but Justin Fields and the Bears moving forward, as long as he develops, as long as Matt Nagy can get him going, they've got the potential to be a team to kind of keep an eye on. All right, kind of moving on. Micah Parsons. I was thinking he was going to slide a little bit. I was never as high on him as other analysts. I had some questions about him, and maybe I was being too nitpicky and forgetting that he was a former defensive end that's moved to linebacker. But he goes to the Cowboys, and I really like that pick. Yes, they got Jalen Smith. They didn't play very good last year. And they got Leighton Vander Esch. But I think they could play all three of those because Micah Parsons is going to fit so well in Dan Quinn's defense. He can play that strong side linebacker initially. Get him on the field and let him develop on the edge. And they're still going to drop him and play him off the ball also. But this is a good situation for him. That 4-3 under, that strong side linebacker, you're up on the tight end. You're rushing at times. Think of Bruce Irvin in Seattle. And I think Micah Parsons, that's just a tremendous fit for him. And, he's a guy that some people say is one of the 5 best players in this draft. And to get him at 12 to the Cowboys in that fit where they can kind of develop him for a year on the edge and then move him back to off-the-ball linebacker, I think that does wonders for him. Now, as much as I like pick 11 for the Bears, pick 13 for the Chargers might be the steal of the draft. Getting Rashawn Slater in the teens. I mean, there's people that liked Rashawn Slater better than Penei Sewell. So I thought he could have gone 8. I thought he could have gone to the Cowboys at 10 before they traded back. And the Chargers desperately wanted to upgrade their offensive line. They needed a left tackle, and they got one that I think, once again, he's a top 6-7 player for me. And to get him at 13, you got your franchise quarterback in Herbert. Now you've got a stud left tackle. Yeah, he's a little short, so only 6'4", but his footwork, his hand usage, I think he's perfect for this NFL, and Justin Herbert and the Chargers have got to be ecstatic to get him. Sticking with offensive line, Elijah Vera Tucker. I actually had him go in pick 14, but to the Minnesota Vikings, but they traded back. A little surprising, you never really heard offensive line, but we forget that the Jets general manager, he comes from Philadelphia. He comes from Baltimore, where they invest in the offensive line. And Joe Douglas wants to do that. They drafted Mekhi Becton last year. Now you got Elijah Vera Tucker. He's going to be your left tackle. And the Jets' left side of the offensive line is scary good. I know Vera Tucker hasn't played a game yet, but he's the best guard in this class. He can play tackle if you need him. You got Mekhi Becton at left tackle. Now you got Elijah Vera Tucker at left guard. And Zach Wilson is going to be protected on that blind side. And I think that this is going to be a good move for the Jets. Yeah, they had to give up some picks, but they had a ton of picks. They could afford moving up, 10 picks in the first round and still have a ton of picks to continue to build up this roster. So they're doing it the right way. They got the quarterback. They're beefing up the offensive line. Now, second round, third round, get Zach Wilson another weapon. They got Corey Davis. They got Denzel Mims. Get him another weapon. All right, pick 15. I think a lot of people projected this. If you were someone who did a mock draft and you didn't think the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones, you probably had him going to the New England Patriots. And I know a lot of people are going to bring up Brady comparisons because he's a white quarterback that's not very athletic. You see the picture of him with his shirt off, and it reminds you of Tom Brady at the Combine with his shirt off. An accurate thrower. I'm not surprised that Mac Jones fell just because I didn't think he was worth a first-round pick. I mean, he's talented. I mean, I'm fine with him going in the first round. I just didn't necessarily think he was a first-round caliber quarterback. I think I graded him late second, early third. But, the good thing for him is he's going to New England. He's got a guy in Josh McDaniels who's ran a system that fits a guy like him. And they got Cam Newton, so Mac Jones doesn't have to come in. I know we talked about him. People talk about him as being the most NFL ready, but he doesn't have to rush it. He's only technically started 1 year. So he can sit back, he can learn, he can see Cam Newton play. Maybe they find ways to use both of them this year, but I like this. I'm okay with this pick. They got their quarterback of the future. They drafted Jared Stidham not too long ago. Very similar style, not the most mobile quarterback. So I definitely understand this pick. No problem with it. And you should see how he does. All right, pick 16. The Arizona Cardinals took Zaven Collins. I I kind of, you start seeing them, rumors, they liking him, and you're seeing the Cardinals get a lot of those versatile weapons. Last year they took Isaiah Simmons. This year, Zaven Collins. And I'm a huge Zaven Collins fan. He was one of my favorite players to watch in this draft class. And I think he's going to be a tremendous pro. And he's got that versatility. He's 6'4", 6'5", 260, 270 pounds. And he's athletic. He can move. He can, he reminded me of Anthony Barr, a guy, that's, big, tall, athletic, smooth, maybe not the most physical. And so there's a lot of questions. Where does Zaven Collins going to play? Is he, he's got the body of an edge rusher, but he moves well for his size. And Arizona wants those versatile linebackers. And, you got Isaiah Simmons, who they drafted last year. You got Zaven Collins. I think eventually what they want to do is those are their two linebackers. And they're versatile guys. They can kind of move them around, kind of have maybe use those guys to your advantage to kind of throw defenses off. I wouldn't be surprised if Zaven Collins starts this year as or spends his rookie year as an edge defender. You've got Chandler Jones on one side. Let him learn from him. Ease his transition in the NFL. Play him some at off the ball linebacker, and then you eventually, as you continue to work Isaiah Simmons into that linebacker role, you can do the same thing for Collins. They got some versatile pieces. And in today's NFL, you have to have versatile pieces to be successful on defense. You got Budda Baker, you got Isaiah Simmons, you got Zaven Collins. As long as these, Collins and Simmons continue to develop, the Cardinals got some pieces on defense to kind of be, look forward to and be excited about. All right, what would a Raiders draft be without a reach? And Mike Mayock, in his, third draft, every year's made a big reach. His first draft, they took Clelin Ferrell, 4th overall. No one saw that coming. Hasn't really panned out. Last year, picking around the same spot, 19, they took Damon Arnett, a guy that not a lot of people thought was a first-round pick. And in this year, they ended up taking Alex Leatherwood. Now, I like Alex Leatherwood. I know a lot of people, not the biggest fan of him, probably going to go in the second round. I didn't put him in my first-round mock draft, my final mock draft, but I liked him. I thought he could be a guy that went in the 20s, the late first round, and be a solid offensive tackle. But to go 17, and to go ahead of Christian Darrisaw, and to go ahead of Tevin Jenkins. Now, Tevin Jenkins didn't go in the first round, so he's got some medical issues. That's probably why he fell to the second round. But there's other guys that I thought were going to go in the first round ahead of Alex Leatherwood. And this is just a typical Mike Mayock, John Gruden Raiders pick of taking a guy that they probably really liked, and those guys just haven't panned out for him. Damon Arnett's still, only his rookie year, but Clelin Ferrell hasn't seen the field. And I think Alex Leatherwood's going to come in. He's going to be the right tackle, potentially a guard. He played right guard at Alabama at one point. But I think at a minimum, he's going to be the right tackle. They want a physical offensive line. I like Alex Leatherwood. Once again, I just thought it was a reach. Dolphins, Jalen Phillips. I like this pick. Jalen Phillips is the guy that on tape looked like a top 10 pick. And I think the biggest issue with him was teams feeling comfortable with him previously medically retiring because of concussions. But it sounds like he was open about it. He was, sounds like him and Chip Kelly didn't necessarily get along and kind of, soured him on football. And once he got away from that situation, it was, the toxicity of it. He thrived at Miami. And now he's going to stay in Miami. And they need an edge rusher. And they had success last year with Emmanuel Ogbah, but they need a true edge guy. And I think Jalen Phillips is that guy. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. Definitely a fan of that pick. Now, Washington took a linebacker at pick 19, and it wasn't the linebacker that I thought they were going to take. I thought Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was the perfect fit for Washington. I liked him a lot, but you always kept hearing Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis was getting lots of love in the draft world. Daniel Jeremiah. I mean, all these guys were just raving about him. And so it shouldn't be a shock that he's a top 20 pick. Washington needed linebackers desperately. And so after we saw Xavier Collins go, Micah Parsons go, Jamin Davis was that third linebacker off the board and gives them an athletic guy in that middle that can kind of do it all, kind of sideline to sideline. He's physical. He probably covered Kyle Pitts the best out of any defender in college football. And so Washington is quietly building a talented roster. If they can ever hit on their quarterback, whatever that is, that's a team definitely to keep an eye on. The Giants taking Kadarius Toney was a bit surprising. I know a lot of people, you saw the Elijah Moore love. Elijah Moore is going to be the fourth wide receiver taken. Elijah Moore. I like Kadarius Toney, and I had him originally going to the Bears at 20. I talked myself out of it. And I thought, okay, Elijah Moore is going to go, the fourth quarterback. People aren't talking about Kadarius Toney anymore. But he ends up going pick 20. And it's surprising that David Gettleman took Kadarius Toney. David Gettleman's a size guy. And he's got his guys that he wants. So it was shocking that they took Toney. And was it a little bit of a reach? Yeah. Was there other guys available? I don't have that big of a problem with it because it gives them weapons. You got Aaron Galladay as a big contested catch guy. Get Daniel Jones some speed. So now they got speed in Kadarius Toney. You got the size in Galladay. You're getting Saquon Barkley back. The offensive line didn't play as bad as people thought it did for the Giants. I like this pick for the Giants. I think they probably wanted to get Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle based off of this pick, and they weren't there, so they traded back, and they got a guy that, isn't as good as those guys, but still fulfills that same role. Pick 21, Kwity Paye. Chris Ballard gets another edge rusher. Paye's a guy that I think potential is always there. I didn't like how he was used at Michigan. I can't wait to see him rush off the edge, but he's still a little bit raw. He's still one of those guys that's got freakish talent, but he always kept wanting more, so it'll be curious to see how he pans out. Pick 22, Tennessee. Caleb Farley, they have a history of this. And, a couple years ago, they took Justin Simmons, a guy who fell in the draft because of an off-field issue and because he had a torn ACL. Would have been considered a top 10 pick if it wasn't for the ACL. And they trust their doctors. They went in and they took him. Now they got Caleb Farley here, another guy that could have been easily, a lot of people thought he would have been the top cornerback taken in this draft class, but he's got back issues. He has a torn ACL before that. So the Titans have to know, their doctors had to sign off on this, and if they've had this experience with Justin Simmons, you have to they feel pretty confident, and if he does stay healthy, the Titans got a lockdown corner here at 22. Another pick that I thought, a team that potentially won the first round, and it's tough to say. I mean, you could say the Jaguars won the first round because they got Trevor Lawrence. But I really like this Christian Darrisaw pick for the Minnesota Vikings here at 23. They traded back with the Jets. So they were at 14. They traded back to 23. And they got a guy that if they would have took Christian Darrisaw at 14, I would have had no problem with it. Rashawn Slater was already gone. Penei Sewell's already gone. Christian Darrisaw, was about that third-rated tackle. And I thought top 20 pick would have been appropriate value for him. And so that was just excellent maneuvering by Rick Spielman, the general manager. Not only are you able to trade back and get some additional picks, but you get a guy that you could have gotten in the top 15, and I don't think anyone would have batted an eye at it. And so they got their left tackle. Darrisaw's going to play left tackle. You've got Ezra Cleveland at left guard. The Vikings, I think, solidified their offensive line tonight. All right, pick 24, Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this was the pick that everybody saw coming. If you made a mock draft, Najee Harris was your pick at 24. Was no surprise. They didn't like the running back situation last year. James Conner didn't produce. He's gone. Mike Tomlin was adamant about talking about how he loved Najee Harris, Their general manager, Kevin Colbert, talked about how, we don't care about taking a running back. It's not a wasted pick, blah, blah, blah. They get their guy. I think he's got some Le'Veon Bell vibes just in the fact that he's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a patient runner. He's not Le'Veon Bell in his prime, but I think he can give the Steelers a little bit of what they wanted out of this pit, out of that position. A bit of a shocker is Travis Etienne. So we got running back going in the first round with the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Travis Etienne. They had a good pick in James Robinson, there was the undrafted free agent running back who ends up becoming their starter and one of the better running backs, last year. I know fantasy-wise, and that's not everything, but fantasy-wise, he was one of the top running backs in fantasy football and ran well in regular football. So it's a bit of a surprise. I mean, I didn't have much of an issue with it because I'm like, okay, a lot of times you need two good backs, and you got your bruiser and Robinson, and now you got Travis Etienne, who's a speed guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and Urban Meyer in his time has shown the ability to use multiple running backs. Now people are talking like, oh, well, he said that they've got a 1-2 punch with Carlos Hyde and James Robinson, and Etienne's going to be their third down back, and so people are like, hey, he's only playing 25% of the snaps. He's going to play more. He's going to be their big play threat. I would not be shocked to see him play a significant amount of snaps. Urban Meyer knows how to use running backs. He knows how to be an offensive scheme developer. He's going to play a lot. They didn't draft him in the top 25 to only play, throw him passes out of the backfield. He gives them that speed element, and I'm not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round, but I understand where they're going with this. Plus, he gets to reunite with Trevor Lawrence. Pick 26, Cleveland Browns taking Greg Newsome. He was my 12th rated player in this class, so to get him, I knew he was going to go back here. I had him rated higher than I think a lot of people did, but I knew his value was going to be in that the late first round. I think Cleveland's a great fit for him. He gets to play opposite of Denzel Ward. You got Greedy Williams there. I think Newsome can play in the slot. He can play outside. Denzel Ward could probably play in the slot. And the Browns are a team that they have talent. And they're just continuing to get better. So as long as, the defense, they like to play a lot of defensive backs. They don't like to play a lot of linebackers. So Newsome just gives them another cornerback and a potential shutdown guy. Pick 27, Baltimore takes Minnesota wide receiver Rashad Bateman. I don't want to say that the Ravens have done Lamar Jackson dirty, because they haven't. They've built this entire offense around him, but I feel like their passing attack, a big issue that they've had with it is they just wanted to get speed guys, and they thought, oh, we're going to be such a good running team that we'll do play action, and we'll just have guys running free down the field. Well, when they had to throw the ball, they had smaller receivers, guys that were just deep threats that couldn't separate and couldn't run routes. And I've long thought for Lamar Jackson, they need to get him a contested catcher. And Rashad Bateman's not, Calvin Johnson or that, but he's a guy that can go up and get the ball. He's a good route runner. He's physical. And the Ravens go out and help out Lamar Jackson. And so I'm so happy. Lamar Jackson is so much fun to watch. He's got some flaws. He's not the most accurate passer, but that's why I wanted them to get a contested catcher, and they finally do so. And let's hope that they can mirror their passing game concepts to their run game concepts, because their run game concepts are some of the best in football. And I want Lamar Jackson to continue to develop, and a big part of his development is getting us a contested catcher. All right, kind of rounding out the first round, I know there have been a lot of talks about the Saints moving up into the top 10 to get a cornerback. That was going to be a huge jump for them. They ended up not taking a cornerback here. They ended up taking a defensive end and Peyton Turner, from Houston. And this pick reminds me so much of Marcus Davenport. Peyton Turner, when you watch him on tape, he reminds you of Marcus Davenport, who the Saints traded up to a few years ago in the draft to get to be their edge rusher. He's a power five, group of 5 pass rusher. He's big, 6'5", 260 pounds. He's athletic, but still raw and developmental. I like him. I thought he was probably a second-round pick. But, if you're looking at here, maybe was Joe Trion better. At least I had him. I had, was Jason Owe. But they weren't far behind. So I don't think this is much of a reach. You got to remember, when you're picking in the 20s, you're basically picking second-round guys. So, if he pans out, it's going to be a success. If he doesn't, like a lot of late first-round picks, especially group of 5 guys, that happens. All right, pick 29, the Green Bay Packers. This pick was going to be interesting because with all the talk of Aaron Rodgers not being happy, you're going to say, were they going to draft? Was Elijah Moore a possibility? And you don't want to just say, day of, let's throw everything out the door because Aaron Rodgers isn't happy and we'll draft a receiver. That wasn't going to happen. And so cornerback was a position that they scouted and spent a lot of time watching and and figuring it out. So to take Eric Stokes here isn't a surprise. He's a guy that tested extremely well, ran in the 4.22s at his personal workout or whatever it may be. Played well at Georgia in their defense. He's a competitive guy. He's a good athlete. You pair him opposite of Jair Alexander, and the Packers are hoping they have, 2 shutdown corners. Pick 30, defense continues to go, and picks 30 through 32, are all pass rushers. We have the Bills taking Gregory Rousseau. We have the Ravens taking Jason Owe, and we have the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Joe Trion from Washington. And each of these teams needed pass rushers. Buffalo has invested some picks. They took A.J. Epinesa in the second round last year, but they needed to continue, and they don't have that dominant edge rusher. And so Rousseau was a guy that had 15 sacks as a redshirt freshman, but opted out of this season. He didn't test fantastic. He still tested well for his size. But, he's only played 1 year of college football. And so, if he would have had another year that was similar to what he did this past year, he's probably a top 20 pick. So I trust Sean McDermott and the Bills' defensive coaches that they're going to be able to develop him. He's got the raw talent. He's got production when he was on the field. So he should be interesting. Jason Owe with the Ravens, same thing. He's got potential, 6'4", 6'5", 260 pounds, runs a 4.3 40. Yes, he didn't have a sack this past year. It was a shortened season. He still was disruptive. But if you're going to say, hey, here's an athletic pass rusher that shows it on tape, let's go to the Ravens. They're going to develop him. You know that. And then Joe Tryon, another guy that opted out. So I think not a lot of people know about him because he didn't play this past year. So I think he might be a little bit of a surprise to some people that didn't follow the draft process as much as others. But a guy that I liked at Washington, he's athletic, he's explosive. They don't have to play him right away. They got Shaq Barrett, who they paid. He can come in, be that opposite speed guy off the other edge. He's going to be a pass rushing specialist his first year or two. And if they can get him to come on the field on pass rushing downs and get some production, they're going to be ecstatic. And this is a guy that I think is going to develop into a starter pretty soon. All right, so that's the first round. There was our shockers. Alex Leatherwood is probably got to be the biggest shock that he went that high. Like I said, I didn't think he was going to potentially go in the first round, but he did. I think the best picks of this round, obviously other than taking Trevor Lawrence, number 1, I really like the Bears taking Justin Fields. I think that gives them the potential for super big things moving forward. I love Rashawn Slater going to the Chargers. I love Darisaw going 23. And so there's lots of picks to like here. I cannot wait for day 2. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. And until next time.